This is Your Anxiety Toolkit, episode number 170. Welcome to Your Anxiety Toolkit. I'm your host, Kimberly Quinlan. This podcast is fueled by three main goals. The first goal is to provide you with some extra tools to help you manage your anxiety. Second goal, to inspire you. Anxiety doesn't get to decide how you live your life. And number three, and I leave the best for last, is to provide you with one big, fat virtual hug. Because experiencing anxiety ain't easy. If that sounds good to you, let's go. You guys, it is Christmas Day. I'm coming to you right on Christmas Day. If you celebrate Christmas, I wish you a very, very happy Christmas. If you don't, I wish you a very happy holiday, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, all of the holidays that are happening right now, no matter what you're celebrating, or even if you're not. I just want you to know I am sending you love. I am sending you compassion. I'm sending you respect. And I just think you're pretty cool. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I do know that your time is incredibly precious, and I'm honored that you're spending this time with me. Today, we are talking about how to get through quarantine. I feel like I am very knowledgeable on this topic. While, yes, a lot of us have been quarantining for 9 months, I get it. I feel like the whole world has been doing some degree of quarantine. But the reason I feel super inspired to do this episode and super ready and qualified is because I am now today reflecting to you and with you on my 14-day mandatory quarantine in Australia. It was intense. So for those of you who don't know, and forgive me because I didn't keep you guys in the loop as well as I could have, in early December, I made the decision to go home to Australia to see my grandmother who had not been doing so well, and my family who I had been missing incredibly. And so I made this decision, and what that required was that I go through many hoops. So not only did I have to fly, and which was really, really scary, I'm not going to say, because that felt like a major exposure in and of itself. I flew from Los Angeles to Sydney, Australia. And there I had to go through many steps to go through their police-enforced quarantine in a police security hotel. It was a 14-day mandatory quarantine that was put in place by the Australian government. And so what happened was once you land in Australia, you go through so many steps. You see a nurse, then you have a health check, then you go to the police department, then you go to the armed services, then you go to the Air Force, and they all have these different roles and jobs to enforce and to keep Australia safe from COVID. And then once you go through all those steps, then you get on a bus with a bunch of other people, and you have no idea where you're going. And then that bus, which is surrounded by police motorcyclists, like it's like a security thing, sort of like you're like the president. Everyone was laughing because it's like you feel like you're either a mix of the president or the prime minister in Australia and a prisoner at the same time, because you have no idea where you're going. You have no control over where you're going. They put you on a bus and then they escort you into Sydney, which is beautiful, to a hotel, not of your choosing. And some people get really good hotels and some people get really crap hotels. And then they pull up and then you go through a whole nother process. Armed forces, policemen, nurses, doctors, and then you check in and then you go back through the police department. And then they walk you up to your room. It's a hotel. You walk down the corridor and they put you in their room and they say, under the law, you're going to be in this room and you cannot leave under any circumstances unless you get COVID. And then they close the door and they don't give you a key. And there are no windows to open. It is you in four walls. There was a window, but you can't open it. And that is where I spent 14 days. Now, I know that was a long story. I just wanted to explain to you the depth that you go through. But once you're in there, you're there. There's nothing you can do. You can't leave. There were several people in the hotel because once you get into the hotel, they give you a Facebook link to a private Facebook group just for people in the hotel. So everyone arrived that day. We all mostly came from USA or London, and everyone's together. And you make really great friends. You know what's crazy is that people who are completely different, no one has anything in common, all of a sudden can come together and be so kind and so wonderful and so inspiring and so supportive in this Facebook group. And some people did really well and some people really didn't. But in this Facebook group, you immediately hear of where everybody's coming from and how they're doing. So it was nuts, I'm not going to lie. But the reason I wanted to tell you this story isn't just to share, to share my story, but I wanted to go through with you guys some of the skills that I had to practice back to back all day long to get through. Because I'm not going to lie, I was actually sort of looking forward to it because not only did I have a book to finish, I finished the book while I was in quarantine, but I'm a mom and I have 2 businesses and I have a husband and we're in quarantine and I never have time off. And I was kind of looking forward to 2 weeks alone, I'm not going to lie. But there is something profound that happens when someone closes a door on you and says you cannot come out. I'm sure even some of you have anxiety just hearing the words you can't come out. And so what was really interesting was, number one, hearing other people's experience of this and me actually, minute by minute practicing the tools that I have my clients and patients practice on the daily. Okay, so I'm going to give you the first skill. The first skill when you're quarantining, and this was for me, I was in a hardcore quarantine, but to be honest with you, I'm sure these skills will help you with your own quarantine or in daily life anyway, because they're skills for life. And so for those of you, I know right now it's Christmas Day and you're probably quarantining and not with your family, or if you are, I'm sure it's really still stressful because of COVID. These are skills that you can use anytime in any degree of quarantine. So number one, be an observer to your thoughts. So the thing that I heard the most people say is that you'll be doing fine. And then out of nowhere, you'll have this high-level panic that goes through you that says, oh my God, I have to get out of here. And you're doing fine. You're watching a movie or you're doing some work or you're exercising or you're eating a meal because all the meals were delivered to your doorstep. You're doing these things and then all of a sudden, boom, out of nowhere, intrusively, you get this thought, oh my God, I got to get out of here. Now, there were those who had the thought and were like, oh my gosh, and they actually, followed through and was like, yes, you're right, I do have to get out of here. And then there were those who, and I did my best to practice this, where you go, okay, I'm noticing I'm having the thought that I have to get out of here because I don't actually have to get out of here. I'm not in danger. There's not unsafe. Everything's fine. I've got 4 walls and a roof and a floor and a bed, right? But the thought can be so powerful. And if you don't observe it as a thought, it becomes a truth or a fact in that moment. And so the first skill is practice just observing your thoughts. Observe the thought that I can't handle this. Observe the thought I have to get out. Observe the thought I can't manage this for 1 more minute. Right? Now, these are incredibly painful thoughts. They often are accompanied by painful sensations of anxiety or uncertainty or depression. Everybody went through depression in quarantine. But our ability to observe them helps us to diffuse from them and make them less powerful, right? So that's tip number 1. You have to be able to observe your thoughts. And I had to do this back to back to back. So even though I was working, in fact, I won't lie, I pulled many 13-hour days of work because I was finishing the book. I had a deadline. I'd chosen to do quarantine right at the time of my deadline because I knew I needed that time to focus anyway. I'm so incredibly grateful for that opportunity. I really, really am. But if I didn't practice observing my thoughts and my sensations, I would have fallen into a massive heap. Tip number 2, once you've done that, you still have to validate your pain. So when I say observe, like I'm having the thought, what I'm not doing is invalidating, like saying, oh, it's just a thought, don't even bother about it, because that's invalidating. You still have to validate, but yeah, this is still hard, right? So you'll say, okay, I'm noticing I'm having the thought that I have to get out of here, or I can't do this for one more minute. But I'm also going to validate that this is hard. I'm not going to disqualify myself and the pain I'm going through. So I'm going to be really gentle with myself. And that involves, number 1, the absence of critical thought. Number 2, not engaging in self-judgment or self-harm, right? And surrounding yourself with things that are kind and pleasurable and yummy, like certain scents and certain textures and certain flavors and certain, comedy and whatever you love. It could be that you like horror. And a lot of people were like, oh my God, I watched like 7 seasons of, like the most difficult TV show that I would find difficult to watch in quarantine. But for them, it was really helpful. So it's self-care as well, right? And for you, let's bring it back to you because that's what this podcast is about. For you, whether you're in quarantine or not, it's really important that you validate and take care of yourself and do a ton of self-care. Super, super important. And before we move on, I know you've probably had some kind of thought saying, yeah, but I don't deserve that, or that's for weaklings, or that's, unreasonable. No, you deserve self-care and self-compassion. I'm not going to bend on that one. I 100% believe that. Number 3 is blocking your time off in a way that is effective. So for those of you who are at home, even if it's Christmas Day, it's important that you keep routines. Now, what I'm not talking about here is like compulsive routines. I'm talking about healthy, effective routines. Take an inventory, and this is what I had to do. What do I value? What are the things that are really important to me? And how can I make sure I keep going with those, right? So exercise, taking a bath, brushing my teeth, calling my children, it might be journaling, getting sleep, having a good sleep routine. Any of those things are great, but everybody had a different version of that because everybody's values are different. So I really worked hard at holding on to the things I valued and making a routine and scheduling that stuff. I scheduled conversations with friends, literally. I have a friend who was in like 4 different time zones than me, and I had my family in America, and I had clients in different time zones. And so it was really hard to schedule it, but I was like, you know what? Number 1, I know I'm going to need multiple forms of support. So I made sure I scheduled them in. It's like, you're calling me at 7, and you're calling me at 9, and you're calling me at 2, and who's going to have dinner with me, right? So I could have easily said, it's not important. I'll be putting people out. What if they judge me? What if I'm a pain in the butt? Yeah, all of those things came up in my mind, but because I value my wellness, and I really hope you do too, you want to schedule support. It's important. You deserve it. You're worthy of that. Whether you're in full hardcore quarantine or just staying home working, schedule support. That may mean that you have to schedule your therapist or whatever you're into, right? But schedules that are flexible, right? We don't want to be compulsive, but scheduling briefly and flexibly, I don't even know if that's a word. Scheduling in a flexible way is super duper important. Now, the 4th point here, for me anyway, the thing that really, really helped me is to become a gatherer of small wins. Now, if you're in 4 walls and it's teeny tiny, there's not a lot to celebrate, right? But it's interesting to me how easy it was to go into this sort of negative bias, like this sucks, this is so hard, it's never ending, I still have 8 days to go, I can't do it, I'm working so hard. Some people have, a lot of people were partners and they had a partner there with them. And so it was easy to go to that sort of negative bias. So what I did is I really tried my hardest to be a reminder of my small wins. Like, good job, Kimberly. You totally took care of yourself today. Or good job on getting a little bit of stretching. Or I loved how you did this one activity without beating yourself up. Or great job on getting through one day. Great job on getting through 2 days. Don't disqualify these small wins, because every day you go through, that you get through and you're managing your anxiety, even if there was one moment where you were able to observe a thought, validate, congratulate, celebrate, get behind yourself, cheer yourself on with the small wins that you have. That is crucial, because it's so easy to go, I got nothing done, I didn't do anything grand, everybody else is doing great things and I'm not, right? Super, super important. Now, this is less of a tip and more of a reflection, but I have to add it. When you have nothing to do, your instincts are to get a little, go on a crazy shopping binge, or, think of all the things you should be doing, or just you sort of lists come into your mind. I know there were a couple of people who said at the end of quarantine, which I think is hilarious, they said, I think I may have lost it during quarantine because somehow, I'm not sure why or how, but I bought a Shetland pony online while I'm in quarantine. And it's holy moly, you guys, you bought a Shetland pony. Okay, I don't question that. That's awesome. I want a Shetland pony. But what was really interesting to me, and like I said, this isn't a tip, it's more of a reflection, is I really noticed that when you're deprived of joy and pleasure, and it was a bit of a deprivation experiment to do 14 days in a hotel room with no windows and no ability to get out, is naturally you start to want to compulsively shop and you want to start to list off all the things you should be doing. And I think it's so interesting how our brain tells us when we don't have something that we should get more, right? But what I really tried to do was observe that urge. And instead of leaning towards more, I just practiced really enjoying the small delights that I did already have. And this was really funny because on day 8, the hotel that I stayed in, the Park Royal, it was amazing. To the Park Royal folks, I freaking love you guys. But on day 8, out of the goodness of their hearts, they dropped off a free ice cream. So you get fed this government food. You don't get fed hotel food. There's no room service. You're not getting that kind of service. These hotels have been taken over by the government, and the government hire catering companies, right? Or the hotel makes space for the company. I don't really know. But the hotel, out of the goodness of their heart, sent out an ice cream. And you know what shocked me is I was delighted. I called my family. I was like, you won't believe it. I totally got an ice cream today. And what was so fascinating is the deprivation of joy made me enjoy and have pleasure in such a concentrated way that it shocked me. But what was really interesting is some of the people in the Facebook group were like, that was the crappiest ice cream I've ever had. And that's okay. I get it. Being in quarantine makes everything pretty gray, and I'm not questioning or judging them. But I think that a huge thing that really helped me when I was so deprived of pleasure was to really be delighted at the small bits of pleasure I got. It's kind of a mindset shift. Now, in no way am I saying to you right now, and I don't want you to leave feeling judged or shamed by my approach here, because there were many moments where I was like, that was crap. Oh, that sucked. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to say I was like this the whole time, but I really want to reflect on this idea. It was a huge lesson for me now that I'm back in LA, which is stop adding stuff to your life because it won't make you feel any better. It won't take away the pain you're going through, or if it does, only momentarily. That the pleasure is here if you allow it in, right? And so I was like, it's sweet and it's cold and I haven't had ice cream in so long. And it was just a wonderful moment. I still will never forget that moment where I just remember feeling such immense delight in contrast to such deprivation. And if you're deprivated of pleasure right now, or deprived, I should say, of pleasure, practice an experiment with just going, wow, what does this lotion feel like on my skin? That's beautiful. Or, wow, this water is so soft in my mouth and it's so great that I have water to drink, Not that I'm saying you have to be in a gratitude mindset. I mean, that's really cool and I love that, but I don't want, again, to invalidate you. But it was just such a profound moment for me, and I wanted to make sure I included that on this podcast. Now, okay, so I digress. I come back. All right, one more tip. And you guys know what I'm going to say because I say this all the time. It's a beautiful day to do hard things. Boom, mic drop. I know you're like rolling your eyes right now, going, here she goes again. But let me share with you why I say this. Since I did it, so many people have told me, quote unquote, I could never do that. And I always say to people, yes, you can. It's hard, but we can do hard things. Now, I don't say that just because I'm on repeat. I say that because I want you all to remember the mindset that you can't is completely false because we can. It doesn't mean you have to choose to, and many people choose not to. Some people have chosen not to travel because they didn't want to do that quarantine, and that's fine. I think that that's great. Lead with values. But remind yourself that if you don't want to and it's your values, it's because you don't want to do it. It's not because you can't. Be really careful around I can't. Because you can, it's just hard, right? I see this every day to my clients. You can do it, it's just hard. And hard is hard. I'm not going to discount that. But you can, it's just hard. And so my final message to you is, I know you're thinking and you're having thoughts that you can't do this anymore. Everybody's tired. Everybody's over it. I know COVID is just so old, right? I'm so exhausted from all of the pain that's caused by COVID. But please don't tell yourself you can't, because you can and you're strong enough. It's just hard. And you have to nurture your heart with every single ounce of your body to make space for the fact that yes, it is hard, but we can do hard things, right? That's my message. I'll say it again 1,000,000 times, right? Because I truly believe it. You have to believe in your ability to tolerate discomfort, and you're so much freaking stronger than you think. In my heart, I believe that. And I'm talking right to you right now. If you've had the thought like, oh, she's talking to those people, not me. I'm talking right to you. You're stronger than you think. And, I came out of there feeling pretty badass. I'm not going to lie. And the people who felt like they couldn't get through, they came out feeling pretty badass because they did a really, really hard thing. So that's how you get through quarantine, friends. You just march through one day at a time. That's another point. I should have really said that. So I'll add that on. You just got to do one day at a time. You can't think about day 14. And you got to just stay on day 3. Day 3 was the hardest for everybody. Everyone kind of crashed on day 3. So, day 3. All right, let's just do day 3 and we'll deal with day 4 later. That's how we got to do this. Okay. I love you. Happy holidays. I have some really fun things happening in 2021. I'm in the planning stage and I'm so excited. I'm actually really happy to be done with the book because I've really just missed doing the creative work with CBT School, and I can't wait to offer you some really great stuff in 2021. I love, love, love you. I believe in you. I have deep, deep respect for you, and I hope you're doing good. So take care of you, and I'll see you in 2021.
Please note that this podcast or any other resources from cbtschool.com should not replace professional mental health care. If you feel you would benefit, please reach out to a provider in your area. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for supporting cbtschool.com.